Welcome to the Language Barrier Podcast. I'm Ryan Segelke.
And I'm John Lutaya.
And today we're going to go through what's popping in our heads. We're going to go through our favorite women's tennis players of all time. We're going to compare lists. Our questions of the day. My question for John will be, what's it like growing up in a non-helicopter parent culture?
And my question for you, Ryan, is going to be, is focus important?
Then after that, we're going to ask you, with all of our hearts, to rate us 5 stars wherever you get your pods, and then give you an email address where you can ask us any questions. But for now, on to the music. All right, Johnny, what's popping in your head today?
What's popping in my head is something simple. We've had it before, but now it's come up and it's kind of making news. This little boy by the name S. Davis, if you heard of the news, made a science project proving Tom Brady was a cheater, right? We've heard of Tom Brady being a cheater and throwing that ball. He had, was it a deflated ball?
Deflategate, yeah?
Yes. So this kid made a science fair and proven how the ball with more deflated will travel like shortest, and if the ball is least deflated will travel farthest. So I thought that was cool. This little kid, 10 years old, coming up with a story that we've had before and proving it, and it's come up at the right time. Tom Brady's in the Superbowl finals. What a way to remember this. I don't know what to say.
About to prove that he was part of Deflategate and that they cheated. Hey, what would you do if they weren't checking for the inflation amount inside the balls and you knew it would give you an advantage?
Yeah.
It's not against the rules at that time. Would you do it? I think there's a lot of that going. I think about that in tennis a lot. Are the top players in tennis, are they taking drugs that are under the radar right now that they can't be tested for that will help them perform at a superior level? That they'll probably test for in 10 years, but not now. And I'm talking about like the top pros that are making, Serena's made over $80 million in prize money and hundreds of millions beyond that with Nike contracts and so on. They have so much money. Are they staying ahead of the curve by taking things that are going to help them recover quicker, help them be stronger, faster, longer? Those are things I think about along those same lines of bending the rules where it's a little bit gray as opposed to, always following the rules.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. I'll blame the NFL then. They didn't have official balls to use. Was everybody allowed to bring their ball during matches?
I think there are rules. I think there are rules behind that. We need to look into this, and I don't recall exactly. But what I do remember is each team provides the balls. So if you go to the LA Rams provide the footballs for that day at their home stadium. And in New England, same thing. And they're supposed to be inflated to a certain level. There is a standard that is supposed to be inflated to.
Okay.
Although it sounds like it wasn't checked.
Okay.
And they felt it would give them an advantage. So would you personally take an enhanced performing drug that wasn't tested for now if you knew you wouldn't be caught for it, although it might be a little gray? If they did start testing for it down the road, maybe you would be.
If I know it's a drug, I would not take a drug. We have to be honest. And part of being a good sportsmanship, especially for the high level, you don't want to do anything that will interfere with your name ahead. So I'll say just do what is right. Do what is right, because we'll find out later and you don't want to be in that image.
I totally agree with you. Integrity is a big thing for me, and that's something I wouldn't do. Although I can certainly understand how somebody could get there. I play pro tennis. You look at some players who are not making the type of money that Federer or Serena or Tom Brady are making, and they're struggling. Maybe they're trying to make an NFL team, or maybe they're in the D League of the NBA league, and they're just making the bare minimum. Yeah. They're competing for a very few number of jobs, and a lot of people that are going after it. So to have that temptation out there of, hey, take this pill, it'll make you run faster, you'll be able to recover quicker, you'll be able to jump higher. I think it would be tempting, especially if you're struggling trying to make money. Oh, and you won't get caught for it now. I personally wouldn't do it, but I can see how somebody would get there.
Okay, all right. And what's popping for you?
What's popping for me? I've got 2 things popping for me. One is we had our first basketball game last night. John, you played your first ever competitive basketball game last night, and you hit the game winner. Now, not an official game winner where it was the clock down, we're down by 1, clock is, going down to 0, and you shoot it at the last second and we make it and we win. But You had a big shot near the very end of the game. Your first bucket under pressure. So proud of you. Yeah. Everybody was cheering, high five. You got the MVP of the game, and we won by 2 points. I must say, we only had 8 points in the first half, though. It was a bit of a joke of a game. We were all pretty bad.
Amateur game. Yeah.
Amateur game, that's right.
Yeah.
But we had fun.
Yeah, it was good for me. As I told you going into the game, I was going to be Steph Curry. I won't hang around the big boys. I'll stay away. And when you give me that ball, I promised you to get the shot inside. So I did what I expected myself to do. I always have courage even in things I've not done before. But yes, that's what keeps me going as a sportsman.
It's so funny because somebody brought this up to me the other day. They said top athletes in the world have kind of a weird psyche about themselves where they're delusional in a way, where they say, listen, I'm going to show up today and I'm going to score a hat trick every day for the next 4 days. I'm going to be number one in the world. I'm going to be number one in the world for 100 weeks.
Yeah.
Like these things at the beginning, they're completely delusional. Like there's no facts behind that can actually happen. Yeah. And I think you've got some of that, and you can see where it works. You've had hat tricks in our soccer games.
That's right.
You made a big shot in the game where you play zero basketball, right? I mean, you've played next to no basketball in your
basketball.
Life. And that was your first competitive game ever.
That's right.
Yeah. That's pretty impressive. So there may be something to that about being delusional. Something positive to that.
It helps.
All right. And the second thing that's popping for me today is I'm just happy being healthy. I'm grateful that I feel healthy for the first time in months right now. And we played basketball yesterday. After that, we went and played soccer. Was able to run the whole time, no injuries. As you get older, I'm just super grateful that during these moments where I am healthy and feeling good, and I'm appreciating that right now.
Okay, that's good. That's the first time you talked about being healthy and you don't talk about age. All right. Yes. You're a young man.
Well, it's related to age. Let's be clear. It's related to age, but that's okay. I am who I am, and I want to speak my truth. That's a big thing. So let's get into our next segment, the 5. We're going to compare not the best players ever, not the most impactful players ever, but maybe our personal favorites of the women's tennis tour.
Especially from our experience.
The WTA. Well, should we start with number 5? Not number 1, but we'll start with our number 5 favorite person of all time.
Okay.
Shall I start or would you like to?
I will start.
Go for it.
Because I have something new, really contemporary. My number 5 on the list is going to be Naomi Osaka.
Okay.
Yes, it's not a surprise. It's what we see. And everybody in the tennis world right now, they are feeling the force that is coming into WTA, right? She's very young girl, strong, very powerful strokes, very aggressive, beautiful game, I would say. Yeah, she came up last year and she won that US Open where it was controversial. And here she comes again, wins Australian Open. There's so much credit into her. We saw that final. It was a really emotional final. She was starting to panic, but the way she pulled it off. How many years? 21 years old, you're in the final and things are going wrong and you're almost crying, Not so many players come back from that emotional level where you're almost crying and you're pulling out stuff. So for me, that was really powerful to see her get onto that courage with that little experience in Grand Slam. That was a second Grand Slam final. And for her to perform this way, I think she's going to be very, very, very powerful force to the tennis world. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I remember we were watching the match and she had blown the second set. And they said even she walked into the tunnel and she could see that Li Na was there and they were starting to get ready for the presentation. And we had to hold it back. So in her mind, not only did she blow a set where she had match points, she blew a match at that point. But she was seeing how everybody was already planning for her to win. Really tough to overcome. It reminds me of, do you remember the match between Gastn, Gaudio, and Korea?
No.
Okay, that's before your time. And it's nostalgic for me because Korea was up in the match. He was killing Gaudio. And I think he may have had match points. He may have been up big in the third set, something like, 5-2, 5-1.
Yeah.
And Gaudio makes this amazing comeback to win his one and only title. And Korea just went downhill from there on. And you just had that same feeling for her at the beginning of the third set. We saw her. She was starting to lose her cool. She was missing a lot of shots that she wasn't missing before. She was crying. You just had this feeling like she was going to completely blow it, like she's done. And she came back and won it. That's really impressive that she came back and won. And it's really cute, when she gives her speech at the end. She's not really good at public speaking. She wasn't as polished as Federer. Federer thanks everybody, and everybody's laughing at what he says. And
experience. That's experience level.
It's so well polished. And it was actually cute and refreshing to see her get up there and kind of not do any of that and kind of kind of make a few mistakes on it. But like you said, she's going to learn and she's going to be a great champion moving forward too. I hope she keeps her head on straight. I hope she keeps working hard.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what's next for her. All right. So my number 5 is, do you know who Francesca Schiavoni is?
Yes. Is it the Italian?
Yes.
Yeah. I do know her.
One of the, I really appreciate hard workers. One of my favorite players in Premier League, for example, is Milner.
Yeah.
And that's a guy who will be on the ground, people kicking him in his back, and he's still going to find a way to get that ball where it needs to go.
That's where you're coming from.
Harder than anybody. So Schiavoni, she won 1 French Open title in 2010, and she was ranked as high as number 4. One-handed backhand, grunted every time she hit the ball. She really had the work ethic and fight that I appreciate in a pro tennis player.
Okay. For me, my number 4, it's going to be, yes, we're talking about this era. I think we're in the same era. Justine Henin. Was she in the same era as...
Yes.
For me, yeah, like what you said. Justine Henin, same kind of player. She had a very good single backhand. One of the rare we've seen. You can't compare it to one of the great. Well, Martina what was that?
Navratilova?
Yeah, we said she had the best one, right?
Yeah.
But Justine, I think she had another good one because hers she would mix in with the slice.
I think her backhand was probably better than Navratilova's.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, she was really good. I enjoyed her movement. She was moving very well, like any top athlete. Very good at covering the court. Very, what do we call it? Emotion on the shots. Very aggressive on the shots. She looked stable. That's why I put her on my list. Of course, she won 7 Grand Slams. And she had 1 Olympic gold medal. That was in 2004. So that's on my number 4 list.
Okay, so I love all the things you said about her game style and her technique. And she was a very technically sound. Her forehand was amazingly technically sound. She was amazingly technically sound backhand. She took the ball early. Her strategy was very good. You want me to help you move her outside your top 5?
Why?
Well, you can make the decision, but she was busted for drugs.
Well, we're not talking about what's outside there. We're talking about the game.
So
the game qualified for top 5.
Given your integrity, you still keep her inside your top 5, even though she's a big cheater?
I mean, it's the game. It's what we see.
You're going back.
That's another level.
Proud Ugandan. Here we go.
That's another level. But anyways, that could qualify. But remember, sometimes even when we find those great athletes who have done all those good achievements, like for example, was the great bike rider?
Lance Armstrong?
Yeah, Lance Armstrong. After we found out all the dirty work he did, we really valued him as a good athlete, and we just took away, what did we take away? The prize money? The trophy?
I would say that if you talk to 9 out of 10 Americans right now, specifically, they don't value him as a great athlete anymore. They value him as one of the biggest cheaters of the last, I don't know how many decades.
Yeah.
He's trying to make a comeback now, and I just heard somebody the other day listen to his podcast and said that they were really impressed with the way he's going with things. I haven't heard that. I've heard his podcast once. I haven't heard that. He's still very defensive about that he was kind of thrown under the bus and made an example of. But yeah, so I don't know if Lance Armstrong fits into that, but he's, just so you know, he's not somebody who's well respected to this moment.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. We can give those people a benefit of a doubt. But yes, if you look at the skill, the talent-wise they had, sometimes, yes, they just made those bad mistakes we always talk about. Okay, we can put him on the side with an hashtag on his head.
Little hashtag.
On the head.
Okay. A little asterisk next to Henin, a little asterisk next to Lance Armstrong, who we'll continue to talk about more maybe on a future pod too. All right, so my number 4 is Anna Kournikova. Remember Anna Kournikova?
No.
So she was a sensation at that time. Very attractive, hit a great ball. She was under Bollettieri. She used to train at Bollettieri's. And she brought a lot of excitement to the game. People were tuning in who typically did not tune in to tennis to watch her play.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great thing for the game. She didn't achieve all that much, and she retired quite early, but she did make it to the Wimbledon semifinal. She did reach number 8 in the world. But these are all of my list are people who are nostalgic for me, kind of when I was between the ages of 10 and 18 and was really into tennis as a junior. These are people who kind of, the women who influenced me too, and who I love to watch play and things like that. And I don't think you can mention like the late 90s, early 2000s without mentioning Anna Kournikova.
Oh, okay. Did she have a single backhand too?
2-handed backhand. Hit the ball really flat and hard. Had her best results at like Wimbledon, US Open.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. On my third, topping the number 3 on my list, it's going to be Maria Sharapova.
Okay.
Yes.
Another cheater, huh?
Another cheater, but it's what I've grown up seeing, and as I told you, I'm focusing on the tennis side, right? I'm trying to be professional. focusing on the tennis sides and what we as tennis fans saw on the court, right? The drugs and the cheating we leave it to the people who are responsible.
Go on, proud Uganda. try to clarify your list of cheaters, but go on.
Okay, I will say I don't support these cheaters. As I told you, I don't support cheaters, okay? Take it easy on me. We are looking at tennis quality here,
yes,
alright?
Go on.
Maria Sharapova, very beautiful game. One thing about Maria Sharapova I would really say it was like she just had the beautiful strokes. Everybody admired, especially for the ladies. Ladies struggled with constructing their strokes. Not so many ladies out there have good strokes. So for Sharapova to come out with the height and very beautiful strokes that really influence the game, make the game simple, I thought that was really powerful. She ended up having 5 Grand Slams. She did so well, but not so well. She had, how many? 16 WTA tours?
I'm not sure. Is that right?
Yeah, she had 16 of them. I mean, her game was simple. If it wasn't for Serena Williams, Sharapova would have been really powerful. But because of another talented athlete on the other side, she kind of went in the deep. And yeah, I would say Sharapova was great, especially in these modern times. Not of all time, especially not talking all time here. We're talking about our experiences,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So my couple comments on Sharapova. Let me start. I love being positive. Let's start off with a positive. One of the best competitors of all time, period.
Okay.
I really respect her for her competitiveness. I remember, so she was trained under Bollettieri. When I went to train at Bollettieri, she was there, and you could hear her. They'd always have like these weekend tournaments, the end of the week tournaments. They call them Grand Prix. And she was competing in those when I was down there, and she was very young at that time. And you could hear it. She was, 12 years old, beating up on 16 and 18-year-olds and screaming with every single shot like she's known to do. She's the one who kind of was the pioneer and the grunting for other players, on tour. But she was a great competitor. She had flawed technique, though. So what made her strokes better was that she was such a competitor, but flawed technique equals injuries.
Yeah.
She had shoulder surgery. She had injuries throughout her career, too, because of that. But what a competitor. Got caught cheating recently. I think you're right. It's tough not to bring her up as part of being an influence on my generation and you, too, right?
Yeah.
She's still around. She's still competing. She beat, what's her name, from Denmark? Caroline Wozniacki.
Oh, yeah. She beat Caroline Wozniacki, so that was a good move, right?
It was a great move. And I'm curious to see people make mistakes and learn from them, and at all ages, too. Whether it's the beginning of your career, middle of your career, or end of your career. You get put in the spotlight. It's a very bright spotlight, and that means that more things are going to come up. And maybe she has a chance to kind of turn her reputation around. And I certainly don't think it's as bad as Lance Armstrong's. But it'd be interesting to see what happens with her the next couple of years, too.
Yeah. Good thing they always pay for their consequences. That's why.
Seems like it always comes out, right?
Yeah.
All right. My number 3 is, do you ever watch Martina Hingis play?
I've had her on Tennis Channel. That's all I know.
She plays doubles now, maybe is where you've seen her now. She doesn't play any singles anymore.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right. The Swedish player?
Yep, that's right.
Okay, I was confusing her with one
the Swiss Miss. Before Federer, she was the last generation of like superstar 15 and 16-year-olds. Because now, you're seeing the superstars that are, what's Osaka, 19?
21.
Oh, she's 21, Osaka.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're seeing them a little bit older. And I think partially because they have rules on the WTA Tour now, right? You can only play a certain amount of events when you're under the age of 16 or the age of 18, making sure that they're safe and not getting injured too early in their career and so on, something like that.
Okay.
Martina Hingis was awesome. She spent 209 weeks at number 1. She had 5 Grand Slam singles titles, 13 Grand Slam doubles titles. She's still playing doubles to this day. She didn't have a powerful game. She was one of those that had very little on the serve, and she could handle that pace coming back at her. So she'd really use your pace and to use these amazing angles to run you around the court.
Yeah.
I thought it was so much fun to watch her play. She had a really great personality on the court as well. She was coached by her mom, who she was very loyal to. She's my number 3. She had a big impact on my time watching tennis, in my teens and late, early and late teens.
All right. Looks like we're living in those ages of the 90s, right?
90s, early 2000s, yeah?
Yes, what we saw. And yes, for me at least, my players I'm talking about, they're still active in tennis. So I'm not talking history here.
So you're calling me old?
No, I'm not calling you old. It's just,
okay. I can take it. I'm a proud old man. I'm a proud middle-aged man.
It's just what you're bringing in. It's so hard to see. Because Hingis, she hasn't retired fully. She still plays some of doubles here and here. So, all right. On my number 2 list, I'm going to have Venus Williams. There's no doubt. She was the first one to rise up of the Williams, right? And she was really, really, really strong. Like, she has one of the best tennis serves, right, we'll ever know in female tennis.
Besides her sister, yeah.
Yeah,
sure. It's up there.
She's very strong. She has 7 Grand Slams. She won Olympic gold medal in 2000. And one of the big things, like, we don't pay attention to was her doubles game. Venus has a very, very good doubles game just because of her strength, the way she gets to the ball, and she has good volley. She's like a complete player. She has 14 of them, Grand Slam doubles singles, and all the 14 she won them with her sister, Serena Williams. So I give respect to Venus. She's been really focused, to be, how old? 30, late 30s, and you're still playing tennis. That's all she got.
Yeah, she was an honorable mention on my list. So she was up there, but didn't quite make my top 5. But a lot of respect for her too, and especially in the aspect of her longevity of her career and the fact she had a different career than most people, right? Mm-hmm. She had a younger sister who was coming up the ranks who happened to be better than her.
Yeah.
I think there's probably a lot of people who would have given up the game once little sister got better. And she didn't. She's hung around. She's still top 20 in the world right now. She's been ranked inside the top 10 in the last year and a half as well.
Mm-hmm.
You have to really respect that she's kind of faded off into the background. She's kind of quietly doing her thing and still maintaining a top 20 ranking.
Yeah.
It's really impressive what she's done. And I'll say this for their games, too. You said an all-around complete game.
Mm-hmm.
How amazing that their dad, as crazy as he was able to go around and go to each of the coaches around the country who he thought were the best coaches.
Yeah.
Vic Braden being one of them, and saying, hey, how can you help my kid? They're going to be the best in the world. And nobody knew they were going to be best in the world. They didn't play juniors. They had no ranking. But he would get the information from them, and they learned a complete game, is my point. You don't see that as much now. We talked about that with the upside of Tsitsipas.
Yeah.
He plays so great from the baseline. He's able to approach so well, but he's not. His volleys could get better. And I think there's Naomi Osaka. She doesn't volley at all, right? So what is her career going to look like if she learns how to volley? And there's also many players who never really learn how to volley. And of course, they can hit a slow ball volley every once in a while. Yeah. But if they were to really hit an approach shot and come forward on a consistent basis, they don't know where to cover, right, consistently, especially under pressure in a big match. They don't know where to go with that volley. They're hitting too many low balls. Cross court, so the ball pops up, player has a chance to come forward and hit the ball down the line, as opposed to holding the line straight ahead. Things like that you see players like Rowanich and those players who are used to being at the net, they know how to hold the line. Federer, for example, knows how to hold the line on a volley, cover the right positions.
Tennis is changing.
Well,
most of the game is going to play baseline. So,
well, but be clear though, a lot of that is not because of the equipment; it's because players are not hitting volleys. And these were 2 women. Impressive, remarkable women, Serena and Venus, who did spend time and worked on to develop a complete game from the time they were kids. Much of the credit to their dad.
All right, who's your number 2?
My number 2 is somebody you definitely have probably not heard of, right? Definitely, probably. Gabriela Sabatini. Do you know who that is?
No.
My earliest memory of tennis is my parents used to love to watch Steffi Graf and Gabriela Sabatini, and it was 1990. And Sabatini won the U.S. Open, and that was a big deal. That was on in my house. Kind of my earliest memory of watching pro players play was Gabriela Sabatini. And she won 1 U.S. Open in 1990. She ranked as high as number 3. Maybe in the same light as Kournikova. She was an attractive woman. She was very athletic. I think she brought a lot of excitement to the game. And I always love that. Anytime we can bring more viewers to this game, that's a great thing. And I think she was able to do that.
Okay, all right. Okay, on my number 1. I think we may have the same one here. Serena Williams, no doubt.
We do, of course. Tough not to rank her. She's amazing.
Oh, I'll say a few things and you will complete Serena Williams since we have the same one. Serena Williams, 23 Grand Slams. Just one away from equaling Margaret Court's record of 24.
Okay.
And she has 1 Olympic gold medal. That was in 2012 where she beat Sharapova like a baby. 6-1, 6-love. I don't know what the fans felt, but yes, that was total dominance. I mean, the only reason we're picking Serena Williams here is because what she has brought to the game. You always talk about how Serena is proud and strong, right? Not so many WTA women want to be that proud, big, strong athletes, right? Tennis is a physical game. But unfortunately for most WTA women, they want to stay that very, modelistic style.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to elaborate on that point further, there's a really good coach that I know. His name is Mason Astley. He's the assistant women's coach at Harvard. And he's been coaching women's players for a while, for about a decade now. And one of the items that he brought up was the challenge of coaching a player who is supposed to be ladylike, but then also taught to be an animal on the court where they have to have this killer instinct. It's a really tough balance. That's why you see Serena in some ways where she's in a match and she is screaming, she is grunting, she was finding every way she can, sliding all over the court, whatever way it takes. And then the second the match is over, when she usually wins, she does this kind of pirouette twirl where she's now kind of back in ladylike mode. You know, I think that's a really tough thing that female players have to go through that men do not. And so a lot of respect for Serena, who is big and strong. That's right. In a sport when, like you said, a lot of other players are trying to look like models. And maybe that's something like Kournikova trying to look like a model at that time too. I think Serena has a tremendous advantage. She's strong and healthy and has that energy and strength to be able to last a Grand Slam event where maybe somebody who's trying to be skinny and may not be eating exactly how they should be eating or taking care of themselves the way they should may not be ready to be strong for a fortnight. Okay.
And if I may ask, why did you choose Serena as your...
I mean, so many reasons.
Number one.
I mean, she's a trendsetter, right? She is an example of what you want your kids to grow up to be. She's not afraid to be herself. She wears a cat suit when she wants to wear a cat suit, even when the French Open tells her not to. She's not afraid to tell an umpire that he's being sexist in the moment, which I don't think she was completely wrong at the U.S. Open last year. She's overcome a lot. She's accomplished a lot. And my goodness, 23 Grand Slams, 14 doubles Grand Slams, 319 weeks at number one, 88 million in prize money, hundreds of millions of prize money with Nike. And she stands up for equal rights and black rights and social justice. And I mean, she really is somebody you want your kids to grow up to be.
Okay. Conclude, Serena is definitely the greatest over here, right?
I think probably the greatest tennis player of all time.
Most influential.
Yeah.
Good figure. All right.
That was a good list. Let's get on to our questions of the day. Shall I go first on this one?
Yeah.
So we went to RJ's basketball game this last weekend, and this is what sparks this idea. We've been talking about you growing up in Uganda and how much freedom you had and the way your mom raised you. And then we were watching RJ's basketball game, and we saw one mom in particular who was doing her best, but her way of doing it was really a helicopter parent. She was the definition of an American helicopter parent. The kid was about 7 to 8 years old. He was sitting on the sideline with his coach, on the changeovers for the basketball game. Mom had his water. Mom would walk over the water and hand it to him. He would drink and then hand it back to mom. And mom would walk back over. And she was standing just on the edge of the bench, almost looming over this kid. And when he didn't listen to the coach, she would say, step in and interrupt the coach and say, you listen to coach, which is a great lesson, but maybe not there. I think that American parent probably needs to wait in the parking lot and read a book and allow their child to have some freedom. Yeah. But that's becoming more and more common. That is something in the U.S. that is common. Helicopter parents. You grew up very differently. You grew up kind of in a non-helicopter parent culture. Right. And I'll start with this and let you take it away, is that I just remember in our trip to Uganda, I want to say 3 years old, but they were probably a little older than that. Maybe 3, 4, 5 years old. Groups. I mean, we're talking 10, 12, 14, 5, 6, and 7-year-olds running around near busier roads with no parent in sight. Yeah. Like over and over and over again. So what is the culture like in Uganda where kids are running around at 3, 4, and 5 and saying, hey, get out of the house, go play. We trust that you'll come back in a little bit. They're not going to run away or jump into traffic or anything like that.
Wow. This is something good you've brought up. Truly a cultural way of life, I would say. And yeah, even for me, when I see these things happening in America and I look at how kids will grow up in Uganda and any other third world country, it's just eye-opening. You just see this world is missing something. We are not the same. We completely define that we are not the same. Like for me, growing up where like parent is not watching me, what you call helicopter, we didn't pay attention to that. If you want me to tell you more like the reasons or why such things don't come along from a cultural perspective is, I think, how we value life and what's ahead and the survival and everything. Kids back home, especially like for me when I was growing up, mom had no time to say look after me most of the time, and she had to go look for money to care of me. So if she's looking after me and she has to get some money for me, I mean, those are two different things, right? She has to focus on one or two things and to make things easier. But I think it's how we value the kids. Like, I'm telling you, in Africa, in Uganda, parents don't see kids as something very, very special, what we see in America. A parent has one kid, that's all they're counting on. And in Africa, parents have how many? 5 kids, and they're still counting. So that difference of, we see kids differently, right? We trust the community. It's a community where our kids are playing together and parents are responsible for kids. It doesn't matter if it's your kid. You just have to watch out for the kids. And I think it's just something emotional. I would say it's an emotional attachment. Parents, I wouldn't say like parents in Uganda are not so much emotional attached to their kids. They are, but it's just because we have this value of kids have to learn how to survive, especially when the kids start how to walk and now they can talk. We give them that freedom to enjoy life, and parents, we just continue to do our things. We just enjoy to see the kids grow, which is also changing. I wouldn't say it's everywhere in those communities. It's usually something that happens within, the more poor a community is, the more the kids are going to be free, because the parents, they lose their attachment because they have to survive. It's a struggle. And for the kids here, it's like,
well, what do you think?
One kid you have.
Was there, like, when you see something like that happen at RJ's basketball game where this helicopter parent who's doing their best, I don't want to bash a parent. Most parents are trying to do their best, but they're clearly a helicopter parent. What does that make you think about? Do you wish there were times where you would have had more of a helicopter parent? Maybe there's a happy medium there? Can you think back to anything like that?
I would say definitely yes. Like most kids, we would love our parents to be there for us. Like any other person who doesn't have that help. We all need help somehow, right? So if your parent is there trying to help you really feel good, and if that's what you're used to, that's the best life. You'll not complain. And on the other side, if the parent is not there to do the helicopter thing, after some time, you get used to that mode and it really feels good. You'll never want your parent to be there. Like for me, yes, grew up, my parent didn't watch over me most of the time. And for me now to start thinking, she should have been there, and I'm like, no, actually it was best for me. I had to figure out my things, and it's kind of a different learning, and you just get the challenges. You face the challenges when you're young and you go through them. It's just more freedom. I always talk about freedom because I had that freedom doing everything you want as a child, and you learn and you go through all those phases, and if things go wrong, you're even afraid to tell your parent. That was the worst, because the parent is going to be hard on you. Why did you do this? And they expect us to be responsible. It's like when we leave home, we only had 1 or 2 things to follow the rules, right? Don't go to places where you don't know. Be good when you're out there, and be safe. Like I told you, one of the risks when parents leave their kids to go out was one, accidents. You were worried when you saw kids crossing the roads. Most kids back in the day would get hit by a car, or we go in the trees, we fail, we break the hands. So accidents were common. And another one was just the kids adapting to those bad behaviors, because there is nobody teaching the kid out there. It's the kid is doing all that thing, and if the kid adapts into those bad behaviors, drugs, stealing, that is a major problem to the parent. And I would say those are the main things. And if a parent would come in to do the helicopter, they would do those things right away from home before the kid leaves. So
I would say that's, listening to this, I would imagine many parents listening, and I'll speak for myself, is that, that's the scary subject of, okay, I'm going to let my young child go off for the day. You just never know what can happen. And like we've talked about on this pod many times, fear seems to rule a lot of our decisions, especially in the U.S. specifically of, you think about pedophiles, you think about, running across traffic when they're not supposed to, getting hit by a car. I've certainly had that image in my head of RJ, or, walking across traffic, getting hit by a car. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
And so you see where this kind of helicopter parent kind of tendency comes in. It's pretty strong.
Yeah.
My story is that, we went and played pickup soccer one day.
Yeah. You
weren't there this time, actually. I went and played pickup soccer. You were at school. And I brought RJ with me, and he wanted to go play at the park. Well, the problem is I was playing about 200 yards away, and I couldn't quite see
I remember.
RJ.
I was there. That was in the summer, right?
Okay. You were there for that one.
Yes.
I wasn't sure what to do. I was really torn between the fact of I really try to do my best on a regular basis. So if he can do something for himself, he needs to go do it. I want to give him freedom. I want him to be able to problem solve. I'm not going to be there to solve his problems when he moves out at 18. So we need to start training for that now. I really believe that. But I was really torn. I'm like, I can't see you. Is there anything really going to happen to him at a park in the daylight? Probably not. 99% chance there's not.
Yeah.
But I don't know. And so I really went back and forth this. I think we talked about it in depth now that I remember.
Yeah.
And I think the solution that I came up with was just come check back in with me, every 10, 15 minutes and come wave and say hi. That way I know where you're at. So I can certainly, I get those feelings of fear that we're talking about where kid running across the street, kid getting kidnapped or these crazy things that happen very rarely. But I can remember those feelings. So that would be an American parent's idea of the way it is in Uganda would be terrifying for most parents. I'll also say, though, that your mom was really great. I mean, you told me a story of how your mom said, don't go play with those guys. Yeah. That's a group not to play with. How old were you at that time?
I was about 6.
Oh, my God.
Between 6 and going up to between 6 and 10.
Okay. And then you went and played with those guys.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
So, yeah, when I went to play with those guys, some of them were older than me. So they were playing rough and they would bully. And, yeah, they can harm you anytime. They just take advantage of you. They play rough, and if you're not strong enough, you get hurt. So a couple of times I would get hurt, and they would do all those crazy things to me. Like one of my great stories back home in the ghetto is I used to be this kid with a very strong head. And I didn't know, because I used to enjoy to hang out with anybody, big guys, small guys, and I was on my own. I got tough really when I was young. I got the opportunity to get tough. So, but one of the downsides of that is there were these big guys, they were like 6 years older than me. And one of the guys that lived by my neighborhood was a friend to my mom and loved me so much. So take me and mix up with those guys. What those guys did when they discovered I'm strong, hardcore guy, like I would take in anything. One of the things they did to me was they started playing with me. And they would be like, you know that kid? Oh man, he has a strong head. Cannot feel anything. And I would be like, yes, smiling. And then they'd be like, okay, come here. Then what is this called?
They'd hit you with the knuckle.
Yeah, they would knuckle me on the head. And I'm like, okay. And they asked me, painful, John? I'm like, no, good. Then they're like, again? Come here. It was just a coincidence and maybe one of the bad ones. My mom used to love to shave my head bald. And the way she shaved my head was with a razor blade. She didn't have enough money to send me to the salon. Razor blade, everything else, it was a Shaolin, very smooth. And yes, the sun shines on the head, some little oil comes on and it's really shining. And those guys are like, John, you have a big head? Come here. Strong head, they knuckle me. I'm like, I don't feel anything. So one time, I think the bigger guy who took me to those guys was like, oh yeah, but they're hitting you so much, John. Now, you know what we're going to do? For somebody to hit you, they'll have to pay you some money.
So you got paid to get abused by these guys.
I mean, that's what you get when you're growing up in the ghettos. Nothing really looks scary and bad habit is you just assume everything is a game and you enjoy, right? So, be like, okay, John, they hit me on the head. They give me 100 Uganda shillings.
Which is equivalent to what? How much is 100 Uganda shillings?
Oh, man. Not even half of $1.
50 cents?
Not even 50 cents.
Oh, okay, a little less.
Very, it was very minimum cents for like kids to buy sweets. Could only buy sweets.
Okay. So one hit on the head equals one sweet.
Yes.
Okay.
Then they hit me. So there was this guy. He was so frustrated. He was like, how come you're not feeling anything? You know what he did?
What did he do?
So he got the same coin he was going to give me because 100 shillings was a coin. He got the same coin, put it in between his knuckles.
And hit you on the head?
And hit me on the head.
And what happened?
I felt that one. I cried.
Did your head start bleeding?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I took that and bleeding, and then you go home. You'd think your mom would cover for you. Your mom is like, no, I told you not to play with those guys. I told you, stay away from those guys. Do what is right. So imagine learning from that experience of like the parent is not there to do the helicopter and also the emotions. Like parents love you, but they'll only come in when things are really bad. But moments like those where it's a moment to take the lesson, they'll let you feel it. So, I mean, for me...
It sounds like great parenting to me. It does. No, it does. It really, I mean that. Because Well, there's a fine line, right? For RJ, it really comes down to life or limb. I want him to go experience whatever it is and make the mistakes that he needs to make and learn the lessons he needs to make, as long as it's not life or limb. I don't want him jumping off a bridge and seeing how that feels, for example. And this might have been a little bit life or limb with going to play with these big guys, then who knows what's going to happen. They're trying these, they're hitting you, they're abusing you, all these crazy things that are happening. Maybe that's a little bit life or limb. But what a great lesson when your mom comes home. Your mom was a single mom, didn't have time to look after you, tried to give you the best life lesson she could as quickly as possible because she wanted you to survive.
Yeah.
And she came home and said, hey, that was your choice, knucklehead.
Yeah.
Right? You better learn quickly. You want to keep hanging out with them. This is what's going to happen. Your choice. And what a great lesson and what a great mom you had. How strong she was to be able to say, listen, learn your lesson or else it's going to be more painful next time.
Yeah. That was how we survived.
So. All right. So I think we wrapped it up. I would say to wrap this up that there is a balance to having a helicopter parent versus having a non-helicopter parent, right? Where you're just kind of let loose. There's some balance to that. You had mentioned that you would have liked a little more helicopter parent, but obviously if you have a full helicopter parent, you're not learning stuff on your own. You are going to go to college and you are not going to have an idea of how to fend for yourself in the real world. Because the real world, as you noticed when you were 6 or 7 years old, when this person is hitting you on the head, people are not nice. Things don't always work out your way. It's not going to be pretty. It's a life full of challenges. The earth is rotating on an axis and we're hurling through earth and we're all running into each other. Yeah. And you got to figure out on the fly how to deal with that stuff. And if you had a helicopter parent, that's not going to work. Yeah. The other end, if you have no helicopter parent whatsoever and the parent is not there at all, you might not survive. So that seems to be the other extreme of that. Yeah. You get a little bit more lucky. Your chances of surviving to 10 and to 15 and 18 and 21 and whatever that is maybe go down a bit.
Yeah. It's also like, that saying of survivor, right? The fittest will survive, right? Survive for the strongest, right? So when you're given that opportunity where like there's no helicopter on you, you get tougher. And the tougher you get, you cannot get tougher by just being there. You have to experience. That's the worst thing with getting tough.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do with your kids? You want to have 5 kids or more, a basketball team or more.
That's right.
What are you going to do with your kids? Where are you going to be on that scale of 0% being non-helicopter mom to 100% full helicopter mom? What's your on that scale? Where are you on that?
I'll be 50. I'll be in between because, the societies are changing. So you will provide the kids with the best protection we have and the best support we have, but leave the kids to experience life. Some parents here would panic. I've seen parents here would panic as part of being in the helicopter. The kid is playing and the kid trips and falls down. The parent is so quick to pick up the kid.
We see that at soccer, don't we?
You see, I'm not a parent, but I can feel what's going on there. That's emotional. That's emotional support. The parent feels the pain. And it's on another level. It's a society level. I told you back home, parents have to survive. Before their kids survive, the parents have to survive themselves. It's the balance of the parent looks at both survival ways. They feel the pain, but they'll let the kid, have a good time over there, play, face it rough, because they know they need that experience. They need to get stronger. So that's the perception, making the kids stronger so that they can survive.
I'm going to keep sticking with life or limb with RJ, is my plan. If he's not in danger of life or limb, I'm going to do my best to remember to let him do it on his own. I tell him all the time that the best thing I can do for you is to teach you how to do it yourself. Yeah. I keep trying to remember that on a regular basis, and I make mistakes all the time. Like in the mornings when we're trying to get out the door to school, and he's not listening, and then all of a sudden I find myself putting all of the things he needs in his backpack when he usually does that on his own. I find myself helping him put on his shoes when he usually puts on his own shoes. And then I have to kind of catch myself and say, even if we're a little bit late, he's got to do it on his own.
That's right.
Okay. All right. Let's move on. So what is your question of the day today?
My question of the day is, how important is focus, right?
Okay. Tell me more.
Me and you have had these things. We talk about stuff every day. Most of the time, business. I'm trying to learn business from you. Yes, you tell me how a good business is a one that is focused. You don't put so many things inside it. You're trying to open a restaurant. You don't open coffee, then you open tea, then you open burritos, then you open some slices of, what is it called? Pizza, then you open, that along line. Food. Yes, Chinese food, like you're trying to be big, And for sure, I think about these things every day. because my perception of things is always entertaining, enticing. I want to see things happen. I'm not afraid. I want to see things happen. But when we talk with you, you're like, John, it's good to focus, do 1, 2 instead of 440 things, So why would you say focus is important?
What comes to mind is, I've ran my own business for the last 10 years and then worked for myself before that for a number of years as well. As a tennis pro, right? You kind of have to run your own schedule. Although the business takes care of certain things, you still have to take care of your clients and set up your lessons and so on.
Yeah.
What comes to mind first is there's a couple businesses specifically. One is a sports business that has, you go into the place and there's soccer and they're doing all sorts of different things. And I've talked with the manager there and I have this belief that we've talked about of being focused. And the conversation I had with her there was about, well, you seem to offer so many things. How's that working out? She said, I have to tell you that the more things we offer, the more the quality of all of those offerings goes down.
Yeah.
And you see it. You see it in the reviews online. You see it in when you watch a lesson being taught, whether it be soccer or something else, you see the quality going down. The problem is it's not just what you see on the surface, right? It's like the tip of an iceberg that sticks out of the water just a little bit, and there's this gigantic, massive iceberg below the water that's huge that you don't see. There's so many things that have to go in behind the scenes of running a fitness business, for example. Let's say you do CrossFit and you do soccer and you do baseball and you do basketball and you're trying to be a specialist in all 5 of those things.
Yeah.
Woo, that's a lot to take care of. You have to train coaches in each of those different sports. You have to figure out how to get your clients in there for each of those different sports, right? You have to share time in the facility for all those different sports. There becomes this nightmare of things happening as opposed to what if you were just to be the best at tennis? The clarity of focus on that, and you can handle the daily problems and issues that come up on just that business.
Yeah.
So the quality goes up, the amount of clients you get in the door might go down, but your price point can go up. So for me, it comes down to quality. You want a long-term business, you need to make something that's of quality. And there are certainly places like IMG that can do that, but they have a lot of money to be able to do that, where they can kind of specify each one. Here's our football academy. We have the money to go to that to solve all these problems. Most business owners will not have that luxury of IMG, who's got so much money behind them, and they've been around for 20, 30, 40 years.
So when you have less, things get better. Another
example of this too is, I said 2 examples. Here's the second one. I've been to restaurants before where they say, hey, all we do is Chinese. There's a place on Colfax that's really good. Yeah. And all they do is Chinese, and they're really good. They're awesome. We go there most of the time when we order Chinese food. But then there's the other places where you see that are a little lost. You see lots of restaurants. It's a very competitive business. We're part owners in 2 restaurants. They're very focused. One is basically Mexican food. It's New Mexican food. The other one is more American fare, where it's, cuts of meat from animals, from pigs, from, steaks and things like that. Yeah. But it's very American fare. It's very focused on what they offer. And those have their issues, but they're very focused and they're able to be very successful with what they're doing. You see the opposite end of that, where somebody goes, hey, I want to open a coffee shop. And then all of a sudden you see they're not doing very well with the coffee shop. Well, then they start offering burritos, which is fine. Many coffee shops offer burritos. That's great. But then they start offering 10 different sorts of items that don't match up anything with what they offered initially. And think of it like a restaurant. The bigger the menu in a restaurant, typically, not always, but typically, the worse the food is. It's just so hard to keep that many things fresh.
Right.
When you go in, right? If it's not focused, they're offering many different types of foods. You can't keep the stuff fresh. And usually those businesses don't know what to focus on, so they don't focus on anything, which then the customer has no idea what to focus on. What am I coming here for? What's the main thing that you guys serve? Even if you go outside of that a little bit, what is your main thing?
Yeah.
They don't know.
Less is better here. You have to focus on less things and get good quality, right? Okay, I see. So,
does that answer your question?
That answers my question. And that will bring us to the end, unless you have anything to add on.
So I would just finish by, I think focus is important, absolutely. It doesn't mean you can't change that focus.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to invest in a few more businesses recently, and I turned a few down because of that I felt like I was getting spread in too many directions. I felt like I was just working to work on the next project instead of doing something I'm passionate about, which matters. And I do just believe that focus is really important if you're going to plan to be successful at something. Now, are you still on that same page? I know you like to be a free will type of person, and focus kind of restrains you. Are you still feeling like focus is important for you?
I feel like, yes, focus is like I told you, it's unnatural. It comes up naturally. You will not see it until you start to feel the value of what you're doing. Because if you're doing something and you don't see the value, that's when we tend to be broad and want to do this, want to do this, want to do this. For me, when I start to do something and I see the value, I just get into it and drop everything and focus on what I have to do, get the ship where it has to be. So it's something which is naturally good, but we don't usually see it. Few people plan on it, when we're, let's say in college students, we are known for, approximating, not meeting the deadlines of our assignments.
Procrastinating?
Yeah, yes.
Language better.
Not meeting the deadlines of our assignments. That is because there's so much activities and so much happening around us. So if we don't see that, I want to do this. Like for me, I'll be like, I want to play tennis. I want to play soccer. Thank God I don't go to the gym. So I'll do like soccer, tennis. I'll go to the music events. And I like to just have a social moment with the students. So for me, like I would go for all those things. And then one day I'm like, oh, but I have to finish my homework. It's not until you see the value, like the only way I can focus on my homework and eliminate tennis and soccer and all that stuff is when I see this assignment is going to make me pass the class. When I realize the value, then I'll put all my energy in that thing and then move on.
This sounds like cramming to me. That sounds like cramming. And I think what you'll find personally in knowing you well enough, you are a great person, but you'll find that your scheduling needs to improve drastically. You're going to need to learn how to schedule times for certain things so that way you can do the things you love to do. And maybe you have to get rid of one of them, but you can still do the main things that you love to do.
Yeah.
But you're not spread out so thin that you don't have time for what you're there for, right? And you probably plan ahead where you're doing 20 minutes every day for 2 weeks before the test instead of trying to do 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 hours the night before.
Yeah.
That's something that will have to come about or it will bite you in the butt. I remember I had this employee at one point, and I've always had great employees. And this one in particular, I'd known for years and was so proud of how well he'd done. But he was always late. And in the tennis industry, that's one of the main things you have to do well is be on time for your client. So we created this thing where, okay, we're going to charge you $20 more every time you're late. And one or two things are going to happen because I'm not going to fire. I love you too much. But you're either going to start to be on time or you're going to owe the business so much money that you're going to quit because you can't afford to work here anymore. And he did get it up to like $300. He was late one time and it got up to 20, 40, 60, 80, 100.
Yeah.
120, 140, 160, 180, 200. He was up over $300 that he owed the business after a certain transaction. And then he finally started to get it together. So the pain became so much that he finally started to schedule better, started to plan differently. And he was able to follow a schedule.
Is schedule different from focus?
That's a great question. Is schedule different than focus? I think certainly schedule helps you be focused, right? I mean, you're somebody, put it this way, it helps you stay in the moment too. You're somebody who likes to be in the moment, so do I.
Yeah.
My schedule, I have an assistant, but I also have my schedule that is another assistant for me. Where I put in something in there that I promised I would do for you 2 days ago. Yeah. I know that I've got to get it done at this certain time. My alarm goes off, that gets done. I comply with my schedule. It reminds me of it. So that way I can be in the moment. I don't want to try to carry it in my head and try to remember what was that thing that I promised. Or either I forget about it and it doesn't get done and I lose the confidence of that person. Or if I do schedule it, then I can most likely 9.5 times out of 10 get it done and earn respect and look out for the people around me.
Because what I thought of schedule was the opposite of focus. You have all your things lined up and you're moving point A to point B to point C. It's just you're moving around your schedule to different focuses.
Sure. I think that goes to the same thing as what you talked about with all the events you're doing at school. If you're overscheduled doing too many activities, sure.
You lose the focus.
You lose the focus. The quality goes down, which is the beginning of this conversation.
Yeah.
The quality of what you can produce goes down. But if you focus in those things, get rid of the things you don't really need, and you focus in on the things that really make you happy, I think maybe your quality goes way up. Your grades go up, right? Your respect from people around you goes up. The job you get moving forward goes up. It's a higher paying job. For example, people notice those things.
Right.
To finish, somebody had said to you that maybe you should cut your hair. Right? You're a black man, your hair with the dreads that you have them right now. Maybe people are going to view you in a certain light. Maybe some would. But I'll tell you what I pay attention more to is I would love to hire you, right?
Yeah.
And if you're on time to the first phone call we have in the interview, phone interview. And then we have a face-to-face meeting for the interview, and you're early for that meeting.
Mm.
And the way you interact with me, those are big-time things. So just being on time and knowing how to schedule yourself properly is a big deal.
All right, I agree. That's one thing we struggle with.
All right. Well, that's a wrap for us. Rate us 5 stars wherever you get your pods. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and on Twitter at LBarrier Podcast.
And our email, of course, languagebarrierpodcast@gmail.com.
All right. Enjoy the outro music that's made by our own John Utaya. And
we'll catch you next time.
Until next time.
Bye-bye.
Who knows what I know? Only Jah know what I know. Every day's a struggle, every day's a hustle. But I want thing me tell you, never give up in a life. I remember how much work you've been putting in day after day. Waking up early in the morning.